What's up, fellow developers? Today we'll be looking at numbers in JavaScript. In the previous video, we looked at strings in JavaScript, and I highly recommend you watch that first before you proceed with this video. Anyway, so today let's see what we are going to cover in this tutorial. So we'll look at how we declare numbers in JavaScript. We'll look at operators, how we perform arithmetic operations in using numbers in JavaScript. We'll look at the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, increment, decrement, and we'll also look at compound assignment with addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We'll also look at some number properties like the max value, the min value, the NaN or not a number, and later we'll also look at some number methods you'll come across while developing certain projects: the toString method, the toFixed, precision, valueOf, and finally we also look at some JavaScript global methods that convert variables to numbers, like the number, parseInt, parseFloat, so on and so forth. So buckle up and let's get started. And just before we start, I just want you to know that I put timestamps in all my videos just in case you know some of the concepts I'm already talking about. You can skip to a concept that confuses you or you want to know more about it. So I label them very well for you to easily find in these videos. So keep that in mind. You can skip to a specific timestamp you want to watch or get the hang of. So yeah, all right, let's start with declaring numbers in JavaScript. So we had already seen this in the previous videos. It's quite simple. We declare a variable and then assign a data type of number to the variable. And that's it. So numbers are simply numeric values in JavaScript without quotes wrapped around them. Keep in mind that when you wrap numbers or anything in quotes, it will be interpreted as a string. So that's important for you to know. So a number that is not wrapped in quotes is simply a number value. Simple as that. So let's look at how we can perform arithmetic operations with numbers. Let's start with addition. All right. So addition. Well, in order for us to perform arithmetic tasks in JavaScript, we have to use operators. That we are going to discuss in the next video. But for now, I want you to just know that we have operators we use to perform arithmetic tasks like addition, subtraction, and multiplication. If you recall in our string tutorial, we saw that the plus operator concatenates two strings, right? But in numbers, it adds them as you would normally add two numbers together. So let's do a quick example here and move on to subtraction. We should get 2 in the console. Great. Now let's move on to subtraction. So in order for us to subtract, we simply use the minus operator, just as you would with your normal subtractions in mathematics. should get 5 in the console, or rather negative 5. Next, let's look at multiplication. For multiplication, we do not have our usual x as we use in our mathematics. We instead have an asterisk, which is normally on the number 8 on your keyboard. So you normally press shift and 8 and be sure you will get an asterisk symbol on the display. So this is how we multiply using the asterisk operator in JavaScript. Great, we get 25. So that's how we multiply in JavaScript. Next, let's look at division. So this is how we divide two numbers in JavaScript, simply using the forward slash. Great, so that's how we divide two numbers in JavaScript. Next, let's look at the remainder operator. So the remainder operator simply returns the remainder of the two numbers divided between themselves. So let's see. So if we get 7, what's the remainder of 7 divided by 2? Well, it's 1. Great. Next, we'll look at incrementing numbers in JavaScript. And just before I continue, it's remainder, not reminder. Okay, moving on to incrementing numbers with the plus plus operator. All the plus plus operator does is increment our number by 1. So we expect a 6 in the console. Nice. That is the same as doing this. So if we comment this out and look at our console, we'll still get 6, as you can see. So think of the plus plus operator as a shorthand, right? It's more concise and precise. So yes, something for you to know that you can do that as well. Let's look at the decrement. Similar, just only difference is the minus minus. You can pause and see if you can actually figure it out yourself. If you can, then you're awesome. If you can't, no worries, you'll get the hang of it. So let's copy this example here above. Just change the symbols and the variable name, of course. and we should get 7 in the console, as you can see. So all the decrement operator does is, well, subtract a number from the value. Next, let's look at compound assignment with addition using the plus equals operator. So what do I mean by that? Well, what if you want to increment by 5, by 6, and we know that the plus plus operator increments by 1. So how do you do that? Well, that's where the plus equals operator comes in. So to increment by 5 or any number, you just simply do this and the number you want to increment. And we expect a 6 in the console. Great, as you can see. So the plus equals operator helps us to increment more numbers than just simply 1, right? So keep that in mind. Let's look at a similar example with the subtraction. Compound assignment with subtraction using the minus equals operator. Well, it's pretty much the same, just change the symbols. Just replace the plus with the minus. And we should be seeing 2 in the console. Nice. Similar thing with multiplication. The only thing that changes is the operator, the asterisk and equals. Nice. And again, same thing with the division. Division equals operator. Six. Great. Next, let's look at some number properties. So these are some of the common number properties you come across. You can find more in the Slack community. So let's start with the max value. So all the max value property does is return the largest number possible in JavaScript. And we should be seeing it in the console. As you can see, it's right there in the console. Let's look at the min. The min does quite the opposite. It returns the smallest number possible. Wait for it. And there we go. Next, let's look at the NaN, or the not a number property. NaN is simply a number that is not a legal number in JavaScript. And if you try to perform an arithmetic calculation with a non-numeric string, that will also result into a NaN. Let's see what I mean by that. We should be getting a NaN in the console, as you can see. So 2 is a non-numeric string. 2, as we discovered, is a string. So we cannot divide a number with a non-numerical string. That will result into a NaN, as you've just seen. Nice. Next, let's look at some methods that are available to numbers. Let us start with the toString method. So all what the toString method does is convert a number to a string. But important to note, the toString method is available to all data types. So keep that in mind. Let's see a simple example here with numbers. We should be getting 1, 2, 3 as a string in the console. Nice, as you can see. Another way, or an additional tip, is that you can also add a base or pass a base argument in the toString parentheses, and that would also help you convert that number to another base. Let's say 2. Sorry. We should be getting the best value in the string format. Great. Next, let's look at the toFixed method. The toFixed method returns a string with specified decimals you want your string to have. So within the parentheses, that's why you pass in the number of decimals you want your number or string to return. So if you pass in 0, it's going to return a whole number as a string, so that would be 9 in the console. If you pass in 2, then you will get 8.96 as a result. So that's how the toFixed method works. Next, let's look at the toPrecision method. So the toPrecision method returns a number string to the specific length you pass in the precision method within the parentheses, the argument you pass in within the parentheses. So if you do not pass any arguments within the toPrecision method, by default it returns the exact input you assigned to your variable. Let's say if we passed 2 as our argument in the precision method, what would we get? We get 3.5. So that's something to note. If the number is smaller than the preceding number, it will be rounded off by 1. So 4 is smaller than 5, so it is rounded off and we get 3.5. So that's how the toPrecision method works. Let's look at the valueOf method. The valueOf method simply returns number as a number. You won't use it much, but it's good to know. We should be expecting the same value as a number. Wait for it. As you can see, as toString method, the valueOf method is also available to all data types. So keep that in mind. Next, let's look at some JavaScript global methods that convert variables to numbers. By global, I mean these methods are accessible to all data types in JavaScript, so that shouldn't confuse you. Let's start with the number method. The number method simply converts the string to a number. As we had seen previously, that toString converts a number to a string. We expect to see 10 converted to a number in the console. Great. As you remember, if you try to pass a non-numerical string to a number value or a number method, you will get a NaN, not a number. So let's try and pass 2. We should be getting not a number in the console because 2 is not a legal number and it's a string and cannot be converted to a number. So that still applies to this method. As I said, this is a global method. If we try to use arrays, which we shall look at later, and put a number there within that array, it is going to convert that array to a number. Wait for it. Great. So these are global methods that can be used everywhere. Nice. Now let's look at the parseInt method. What the parseInt method does, it converts. But just before I continue, let us take this back as a string. Okay, so back to our parseInt. So as I was saying, the parseInt also converts strings to numbers. Well, you might be asking yourself, that is similar to the number method we just looked at above, but we're going to see a difference in a moment. and we should expect a number in the console. So we get 30 converted as a number. So it looks like a number method and it works like a number method, but they're actually different. Let me show you the difference. One of the main difference between the parseInt method and a number method is that the parseInt method uses a conversion type, a conversion method known as parsing, and the number method uses a conversion method known as the type conversion. Now, this will look at later when we are looking at the code stack and the type conversions, but all you should know that the parseInt uses parsing when it is converting strings to numbers. How? What do I mean by that? So let me show you. If we added a string next to the integer, sorry, next to the number, we'd still get our 30 in the console. It will still look for any value resembling to a number that it can convert to a number data type. But let's try that with the number method and see what happens. And wait, we get a NaN, not a number with the number method. The number method type conversion looks at the data type as a whole, convert to a different data type. But they all still have the same principle. A non-numerical string will still result to a NaN. So if we remove the 30 within the string literal in the num14 variable, we should get a NaN in the console, because 20 is a non-numeric string. Great. I hope you understood the differences, but if you didn't, there are wonderful articles I've linked in the description below and in the Slack community for you to read more and understand more. Alright, finally let us look at the parseFloat method. So the parseFloat works like the parseInt, except the parseFloat accepts decimal points or decimal figures. So we should be getting 12.34 in the console as a number. So now let's try using the parseInt method and see what we get in the console. What do you think we're going to get? So the parseInt method only returns a whole number, and the parseFloat returns a floating number, right? So that's the main difference between the parseInt method and the parseFloat method. If this is still confusing you, you can find more resources in our Slack community. All right, and we have come to an end of our interesting number journey. But just before you go, I want to leave you a bonus method that will be quite handy when working with numbers in web development. And those are the JavaScript math functions. So we're going to look at 5 of them, 5 common used ones, and You'll read more about them in the Slack community resources I share with you guys. So we're going to look at the floor method. We'll look at the ceil. We'll take a look at the round. Take a look at the min and max. And finally, we'll take a look at the random method. Great. So let's start with the floor method. Well, the floor method, all it does, it rounds off to the lowest value, floor, like ground, right? The ground. The lowest value is what is returned in your number. Let's see that in action. This is how we call the method. So what it's going to do, it's going to return the lowest value passed to it, and that should be 4, right? And it does not care if there's 99, right? It is not going to round it off to the nearest numbers we know and you expect 5 in the console. No, it's still going to return the lowest value negatively. So it counts going in a negative way, going back nearest to 0, right? So it's always going to return the lowest value. So that's how the floor method works. So once you understand that, you also get to know that even with negative values, it still counts negatively, going backward closest to 0. So what is negative 4.99 when you use the floor method? Well, it's not negative 4 as you might have thought. It is negative 5 because 5 is how far 5 is from 0. Remember, it counts negatively. Yes? So negative 5 is how far it is from positive 0. If doesn't make sense, I know it's a bit tricky to explain. The resources I've shared and helpful videos that will make you understand this more. Let's look at its similar method, that is the ceil method. The ceil method does quite the opposite. It rounds off to the highest number in a positive way, right? So the floor goes in a negative way and the ceil goes in a positive way. So let's do the same example here. As you might have guessed, it's going to round off to the highest number possible. You see, it does not matter if it's 3.02, it's going to push it to the highest positive number. So this is the positively counting positively to 0, right? So that is how the ceil method and the floor method work. You come across them working with quantities, how you round off numbers, how you floor them, ceil them. That will all depend on your preference, how you want to display your numbers. Next, let's look at the round method. Well, the round method simply rounds off numbers to the nearest integer, as we are used to. and we should get 4 in the console, as you can see. Great. Let's look at the min and max function. They're similar. Let's look at min first. All min does is return the smallest number in the integer. So min returns the smallest number, the smallest value in the integers. Let's look at the max, similar to that. And we should get the biggest number in the console, which is 32. There we go. So min looks for the smallest, max looks for the biggest. And finally, let's just look at random. All random does is return numbers from 0 to 1. They can never be the same, they will always be random. So we should get a random number from 0, ranging from 0 to 1, and they can never be the same, they'll always be random. As you can see in the console, we can run this console again, and they will not be the same. Wait for it. As you can see, they're different results. They're never the same. All right, and there we have it. Your bonus, the math functions in JavaScript, and how we use them with numbers. I hope you had fun. Next time, we're going to look at operators in JavaScript, how we work with them. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and had fun. As always, do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more new videos like this. Don't forget to join the Slack channel. Seek, solve, share. See you in the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.